What's up guys, this is Yacineygo and welcome to my Enneacraft combo video and deck profile, even though this is more of a deck profile than a combo video because, you know, Enneacraft, it's not really a deck that spams from the extra deck too many times, and as a matter of fact, you're basically never going to be summoning anything from your extra deck. I mean, this is the only pendulum deck pretty much in history that can't even pendulum summon because every single skill is 0, and even if you did want to pendulum summon, it wouldn't work because you can only special summon monsters in face down during the turn use the in-hand effect of the Enneacraft monsters to summon themselves. And that's like the main gimmick of this deck. And what really makes these cards really interesting is the fact that they have a non-once per turn effect to special summon any monster from the hand in face down defense position. And yeah, if your opponent goes Rip or Negate, you're just gonna go, okay, sure, effect again, and then do it again and again, and then you can summon 5 face down monsters going second. And you can break boards with their face down effects. As crazy as this may sound, it's kind of like Big Shield Guard now, where your opponent does something, and you're like, I'm gonna chain my face down defense position monster to your card, and then do something that could be devastating. And if you have no idea what to expect from the Enneacraft cards, you can definitely get blown out, because even though these cards are really reactive and slow, they are devastating when they do pop off. So yeah, I will be going over like an overview on all these cards so that you can understand what they do, as well as, of course, the deck list and 2 combos, because, again, there's not too much to do in this deck. It's more like the flow of execution that matters, as well as an FTK that you can do in Enneacraft, and it's a really nasty one, but I don't necessarily believe that it will always work in the TCG, because obviously we have different rulings, and you know how it goes. But yeah, anyways, before we go any further, as always, you know the drill. Smash the like and subscribe button, really motivates me a lot to keep making videos like these. And with that being said, let's get right into it. So we have 12 level 1 Enneacraft monsters. These are all like your Clifford Scouts. So in the scale, they have a hard once per turn effect, each of them, to reveal 3 Enneacraft cards from your deck to your hand. They can be the exact same. So obviously you get rewarded for playing cards as 3-ofs. And then your opponent randomly picks one for you to add, and then you shuffle the rest in the deck. So it's basically Pantheism of the Monarch, which is really good. And then each time a monster is flipped face up, you place one Enneacraft counter on each of these cards. And I mean, they all have the exact same effect. And in case you were wondering, what do the Enneacraft counter cards, what the counters do, it's for the field spell. Once per turn during each end phase, so your end phase and your opponent's end phase, the field spell has a mandatory effect to clear every single Enneacraft counters from your field, and then burn your opponent for 900 damage for each. And you're going to be getting counters every single time you flip your monsters face up. So even if you never have a battle phase, you can still kill your opponent over time. It's going to take like 10 years, but yeah, you can do it. Usually this deck OTKs by like turn 5, which is pretty slow, because on turn 1, you're like, you know, you're establishing your board, and then turn 3, you're making sure that your opponent literally just does not play at all, doesn't have like a follow-up for turn 4, and then on turn 5, the game's over, because now you start flipping your monsters, and they're really big. Like, you have 4 different boss monsters, so you have 4 different scouts, and then 4 different boss monsters. All the scouts also have, like, effects while they're face down, just like the boss monsters, and also just like the boss monsters, they all have the effects to special summon themselves from the hand. So yeah, I just read the pendulum skill effect, but now for their more unique monster effect, this is pretty much the only thing that differs between each of the 4, you know, boss monsters and the 4 scouts. So their monster effects, because they're all flip effect monsters, except for like this one right here. And also, yeah, actually, no. Yeah, I mean, Atori Mar is the only boss monster with a flip effect. The other one, it's rather like after the card was still face up, like you apply a condition. But yeah, Orgia. Crazy how a card can have this name. There's no way. Maybe I'm reading it wrong. Maybe I'm stupid, but yeah, whatever. Orgia. Their flip effect is destroy monster upon controls it doesn't target, which is really cool. And you can flip it whenever your opponent activates a monster effect in the hand. So if your opponent goes Joe Cool reveal, you can flip Orgia, and then on the resolution, you can destroy an opponent's monster. That's not too bad. It's pretty good in a K9 dominated field. And then, yeah, also while you flip this card, you're also searching an Enneacraft card from your deck to your hand. Any of them. And this time, even if you only play 1 copy, you can search it. It's not like you have to reveal, you know, 3 different copies and stuff like that. So yeah, that's pretty cool. And then the Chamarla, that one, when you flip it, you negate the effect of an effect monster upon controls. Unfortunately, flip effect monsters, their effects are mandatory. And on your opponent's turn, it's going to be Chain Link 1. So if your opponent, let's just say he goes Joku, reveal Solfador, and then he goes Summon, and then you chain Chamarla to like the Joku effect, because you can chain it whenever your opponent activates a card or effect that includes an effect that special summons a monster. So you can chain it to Joku. The Chamarla will be Chain Link 1, and then Solfador will be Chain Link 2. So in other words, you're going to be not able to negate the Solfador's effect to dump 2. which is kind of unfortunate. Just because, again, it is mandatory, so just keep that in mind. And also, again, it searches an Enneacraft card while you use its effect while it was face down. The Alazone La or Ia or Aya, whatever, I don't freaking know. Whatever, their names make no sense, okay? That one, when it is flipped, you banish a random card from opponent's hand until the end phase, so it's kind of like a K9 Werewolf. And you can flip it whenever opponent activates a card or effect that includes an effect that adds a card from the deck to hand. So honestly, very easy to trigger that one. Like your opponent activates Reinforcement of the Army, you go Chain, and then on resolution, your opponent searches, and then you can banish a card. Random though, so it's not like you choose. And then the Oknirla, hold on a second. No, yeah, exactly, it is random. The Oknirla, that one, when it is flipped, it shuffles up to 3 cards from your opponent's graveyard and or banished into the deck, which is very, 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 very good against Malice. And you can chain it whenever your opponent activates a card effect in the grave or banished. So that's not too bad, you know. Your opponent goes normal summon Dormouse effect, banish the White Rabbit, and then, you know, you can chain to White Rabbit. You won't be able to banish anything else, but, you know, like, it's still decent. I mean, no, actually, it's not great against Malice. I take it back. Just because of how slow it is, you know, it's gonna be on resolution. It's not like you're chaining directly to the freaking White Rabbit effect in the banished. Otherwise, it would have been broken. For the boss monsters, again, there's 4 of them. The Asta Pixea, that one, after it was flipped face up, while it is in the monster zone, your opponent cannot target cards in the field or graveyards with card effects. And it is freaking permanent. It's not until the end phase. So yeah, your opponent will never be able to, like, Bestial or Imperm or whatever, which is actually kind of scary when you think about it. So yeah, very good effect. And yeah, when your opponent activates a card effect that targets a card you control, you change it from face down to face up defense, and then you negate that effect. You don't destroy though. And then you can banish a random card from your opponent's hand face down, but permanently this time. Your opponent does not get it back on the end phase. So it's like an evolved version of the Alazone, Aya, whatever. And then the Atori Mar, this one people consider the best. So it's like a huge board breaker on your own turn. Whenever it is flipped face up, you change it's like a Quaking Mirror Force. You change all of your opponent's monsters to face down defense, and their battle position cannot change naturally. They have to change by card effects, which can be devastating against turn decks. And then during your turn, when your opponent activates a card effect on the field very specifically, so hand traps don't count unless it's like Imperm or Purge or whatever, you can change this face down card to face up defense, and then negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that card. And then, yeah, you can reveal this card and you have the rest is the exact same. So yeah, it's like a Omni Negate that negates something only on your turn. So obviously, if your opponent is smart and holds like all his place for his own turn, then this card's not going to be doing much on your own turn. But then again, if you can flip it on your opponent's turn, it can be broken. And you can flip it on your opponent's turn with Reverse as well as Sol and Luna. And then we got 2 final Enneacraft monsters. These are kind of like the worst because they're very slow. The Aiza Leon. After it was flipped face up, while it is in the monster zone, each time your opponent adds a card to hand by card effect, it takes 900 damage for each card. So it can stack up, but it's still very slow, and it doesn't really, like, break your opponent's board. But there is another effect that is not too bad. So while it is face down, when your opponent activates a card effect in response to your card or effect activation, you can change it from face down defense to face up attack, and bounce back up to 3 cards from the field to the hand. Again, doesn't target, so it's a great way of removing stuff on the field. And finally, the Arca Tail. After it was flipped face up, while it's in the monster zone, each time a monster is sent to your opponent's graveyard, it takes 900 damage. So it's very similar to the Aiza Leon. It's just that, you know, he gets burned each time a monster is sent to the grave. And then the other effect, while it's face down, if your opponent is trying to activate a card or effect to try to destroy a card on the field, you can change it from face down defense to face up defense. And then it protects all of your Enneacraft spells and monsters from being able to be destroyed by card effects only for the rest of the turn. So yeah, this gives you protection from stuff like Regeki, and then this kind of stops your opponent from trying to like negate your stuff, because it's gonna be like chaining to your own cards or effects. So Aiza Leon is good for that. And then the Atori Mar is an Omni Negate, so very broken on your own turn, but going, you know, like into your opponent's turn, it's not as good unless you can flip it with Reverse or Sol and Luna. And then the Asta Pixea, this one, it's also pretty powerful. Like the banishing a card from your opponent's hand is really devastating, and also like your opponent cannot target, you know, cards on the field or in the graveyard with card effects. That's really nice. Anyways, for the spell cards, we got 3 Enneacraft Release with 3 Reverse and 3 Enneapolis, which is the field spell. Release places an Enneacraft Pendulum monster from your deck in your Pendulum zone, so it's like a better way of searching because it loses a little less to draw. And it has a graveyard effect that you cannot use the same turn you use it, use the first effect where you can banish it, and then recycle back an Enneacraft from your extra deck to your hand. So you get like a better follow-up, basically. So I really recommend always trying to start your turn 1 with release, just so that you can get it in the grave. And even if your opponent can destroy one of your Enneacraft cards, you can recycle it back. So it's basically just you going +1, really. And then Rebirth, it's kind of like a magical mallet, where you can shuffle any number of Enneacraft monster cards, by the way, from your hand and or face-up field into the deck or extra deck. So it also includes like the pendulum scales, and then you draw cards equal to the number of shuffled, which is not like the best effect going first, actually, unless you're trying to dig into non-engine cards such as Soul and Luna and Karma Cannon, or into Vanity's Ruler for post game 1. But this card has a very good graveyard effect, where whenever opponent normals or special summons a monster while it's in the grave, you can banish it and activate one of 2 effects. So either special summon an Enneacraft monster from your hand in face down defense. I think this effect is not super relevant, but the other effect is really nice, where you can change a face down defense position monster into a face up defense position monster. So you can flip the Atori Mar on your opponent's turn, and then book, Karma Cannon your opponent's entire board, and then again the monster cannot be flipped. So that's really insane. And then the 3 field spell Enneapolis, this card doesn't really start anything for you. It doesn't add any consistency, but again, it burns your opponent, and then it also has 2 other effects where you can bounce back any amount of Enneacraft Pendulum monster cards on the field to the hand. And also, once per turn, when an Enneacraft Pendulum monster card is a flip face up, you can choose to either return it to the hand or place it in your Pendulum Zone, but you can only do that for 1 monster, and it's once per turn, unfortunately. So yeah, you still want to play 3 copies of these cards, just because that way you can guarantee that you can always search them with your scales, your scouts. Otherwise, it's going to be RNG, so it's, you know, again, it's like a Pantheism of the Monarch. You get rewarded for playing multiple copies of all these cards. And then we also play 3 Pot of Desires, because everything is a 3 of. And we also have, you know, the Enneacraft Rebirth as a draw card. So, you know, it would conflict with Extravagance, but it doesn't conflict with Pot of Desires. So that's my thought process. But if you want to play Extravagance and Prosperity instead, you can definitely do so. And then Soul and Luna and Karma Cannon, these cards are great, going first and second. Being able to not only flip an opponent's monster face down, but also especially flip one of your own monsters face up is really what makes Soul and Luna remarkable in a deck like this, like flipping your own Atori Mar, or even your Astea Pixea, or even sometimes like the small monsters like the Orgia and stuff like that. Yeah. So that's it for the main deck. For the extra deck, I'm not really going to go over it, because for me, this is just a Ghost Reaper extra deck. The only cards that I'm actually playing are Typhon and Zeus, just in case like the game state makes no sense at all, and I have to like normal summon one of my small monsters to make a Typhon, run over something, and then next turn I run over something again, and then I make a Zeus, and then I control the game state like this. It might come up every now and then, so obviously if your extra deck really doesn't matter, you may as well play those shitty cards, but like nothing else is ever going to be summoned, because again, like you're locked under anything for the whole turn when you use the in-hand effect of your Enneacraft monsters to summon themselves from the hand. So that's like the big drawback. And for the side deck, really keeping it simple, this deck doesn't really have the luxury of being able to play hand traps, so you may as well just only play devastating board breakers and, you know, like insta-win floodgates for when you're going first. So I'm on 3 sphere mode with 3 Reaper, with literally only extra deck, like the only extra deck cards are Ghost Reaper targets. So, you know, like I'm basically covered for every matchup. And then Denko Sekka for a couple of matchups, like Dragon Tail is one of the better ones for Denko Sekka, because you do not have to deal with like all their trap cards, so your opponent will never be drawing cards. And also, like when you go normal summon Denko Sekka, your opponent's only out is like basically going 5 mana and then chain Grimel to like destroy it, or like Philia Regis, you know, banish or whatever. Obviously that works. I'm not gonna pretend like it doesn't, but you have interactions on your own turn. You can chain the Atori Mar and then, you know, like negate, and then, you know, Book of Moon your opponent's board. You can also destroy your opponent's board going second, because the scale effect of your big boss monsters at the end of the battle phase, if you have another Enneacraft card in your other Pendulum Zone, you can destroy an opponent's monster with less than 3,000 attack. So obviously Arthelion, you won't be able to out it because it has a 3,000 attack. It's not less or equal. Unfortunately, it would have been so convenient if it was less than equal. But yeah, your opponent can also Arthelion bounce back the Denko Sekka, but he cannot Mululu negate Denko Sekka or Pan destroy it, because the way the Dragon Tail monsters are worded, you have to like set a Dragon Tail spell or trap from your deck to your field, and then you use the effect. And with Denko Sekka, you can't even legally attempt to set those spells and traps, so you won't be able to negate and you won't be able to pop. So that's what makes Denko Seka really good. And then evenly matched, of course, that's a given. This card is really nice in trap decks in general, or stun decks and stuff like that, where you, again, you can't afford to play hand traps. You may as well play Saki, combination of scam cards like Sphere Mode and Evenly, and hopefully you draw them. Hopefully. You're good at the game, right? You have draw power. You got Desires, you got Reverse. You're gonna sack the shit out of your opponent. I believe in you. And yeah, especially if you smash the like button, then all of a sudden you're gonna draw even better. But yeah, anyways, let's get into the combos now. Okay, so for this combo, I'm going to be showcasing the flow of execution for when you have, let's say, Orgia with Alazonia, whatever. Bro, I probably butchered their names completely. Like, there's no way that's, like, their actual name, but you know what? I'm just gonna roll with it. Like, at this point, like, what's the worst thing that can happen? But yeah, you're going to be setting the Orgia first. That's what I like to do, because if my opponent tries to, like, ash one of my cards, it's basically gonna be going neg 1, because now I can chain the Orgia, and since my opponent activated a monster effect in the hand, I can flip it and then search an Enneacraft card, so you're trying to ash my Alazonia. Well, guess what? It's not going to be doing jack shit. So I'm going to be flipping my Orgia. I'm going to be searching anyways. I'm going to be grabbing the release, which can place an Enneacraft Pendulum monster for my deck on the, well, in the scale. That's going to be the Oknirlia. Use that effect and then search the field spell. And then field spell bounce back literally freaking everything. And then special summon everything. And, you know, that's it. That's all you really need in 2025 to make an unbreakable board. As crazy as this may sound, 3 flip effect monsters is going to be enough to handle Joko Sulfador, which is literally the best K9 Crystron combo. And K9 Crystron combo is obviously the best deck, so, you know, that's the reason I'm showcasing this combo. It's just to prove that even if my opponent has one of the only hand traps that can be used against this deck, because Fuwa literally does nothing, Droll is not the best, Nibiru is actually a dead card, my monsters are in face down, there's nothing to nib. Even if I summon 11 times in my turn, there's still nothing to nib. My monsters are face down, Nibiru only tributes face up monsters. And yeah, other cards like Bestios and DD Crow, stuff like, yeah, don't even try. Anyways, my opponent uses Joko, Reveal Sulfador. I chain the Orgia, search the Atori Mar, and then my opponent summons both monsters. That is going to be triggering the Orgia to destroy. I mean, that's a mandatory effect, so even if my opponent is turn player, this is still going to be chilling 1. I will be destroying the Joko, doesn't have to target, obviously. And then obviously chain the Annapolis to the Sulfador and chilling 3 to, you know, either bounce back or scale the Orgia. I'm going to be scaling it just so that I can burn my opponent even more. So yeah, destroy the Jokul. And then my opponent uses Smygor effect. I'm going to be chaining the Oknirlia to surge the Asta Pixea. It doesn't really matter, who cares? It's not like I'm doing anything with them on this turn. And my opponent is going to be searching the Inclusion. And then the Oknirlia is going to be shuffling, you know, up to 3 cards from the graveyard and banished back into the deck. So obviously that Jokul, just in case my opponent had a Lantern, as well as Solfnir, and I don't really know why I'm bouncing back Ash, but I'm bouncing back Ash, okay? So leave me alone. Yeah, activate Inclusion. I'm going to be flipping that Alazonia, and I'm going to be searching again for the Arcatail, and my opponent is searching Tristalos, but guess what? I'm going to be banishing it because I'm skillful at the game, and my opponent only has 1 monster on the field, so, you know, he's going to be running over it, and then it's going to be going into the extra deck. And on my next turn, I'm going to be getting crazy follow-ups. So on the end phase, my opponent gets burned for 18 because there were 2 Enneacraft counters. And then on my own turn, look at the amount of card advantage I'm generating. So I'm going to be banishing the release to recycle back the Oknirlia from my extra deck to the hand. And then I'm going to be searching with the Orgia to get a release and then scale again for the Aiza Leon. And then, yeah, bounce back my Oknirlia, whatever, or like the other one, I forgot. I have short-term memory loss. And then, yeah, battle phase, don't run over anything because this deck is super slow. Destroy the Sulfador at the end of the battle phase with the effect of Aiza Leon. Yeah, that's board breaking, by the way. That's board breaking and a half. And then shuffle back cards with Reverse just to draw them again because I stacked the deck. And then, yeah, I'm going to be summoning infinite monsters, and that's actually like a completely unbreakable board. This is the situation where you know you've won the game, because, like, your opponent doesn't have a lot of resources, and you have, like, infinite monsters, and they are actually disruptions, because we got the Reverse so that we can flip the Atori Mar, and then book everything. And if our opponent goes, like, Regeki, we can protect with Arcatail, and if our opponent does, like, literally anything, I mean, we have, like, the small monsters as well, like Orgia, destroy a monster, Oknirlia, shuffle back stuff, so Sulfador doesn't do anything. You can go Sulfador, destroy the Inclusion, then, you know, effect, and then I'm just gonna shuffle back everything back into the deck, so it literally just gets checked. And yeah, there's basically no way we are losing this game. Like, this is a huge wall as well, so even if her opponent can play the game, how are you clearing everything, you know? And also, I may have spells and traps as well. You know, if I'm skillful at the game, I'm drawing into Karma Cannon. Yeah, that's it for this, not really combo, but I guess flow of execution. Let's get into the actual FTK now. Okay, so if you want to FTK your opponent, you can. It's just that you're gonna have to draw Gab the Divine Soldier, as well as 4 Enneacraft cards. 2 of them should be like the small scales. It's honestly, it's really interchangeable. Like, there's infinite ways of being able to do it, so honestly, it doesn't matter too much. But yeah, if you have like 1 scout, then it actually works anyways. But yeah, we can search for the field spell, and then we can go search for another small monster, and then set that, and then... Like, honestly, you can literally just have 1 scout, and then the other one's just, like, different Enneacraft cards. Don't even have to be like, different Enneacraft cards. Basically, 4 Enneacraft cards. One of them has to be one of the scouts. Just because we do have to go, like, +1. Yeah. Now we're going to be tribute summoning the Gab, the Divine Soldier. And then summon these 2 monsters. And then we keep getting counters every single time the monsters get flipped. And that's, like, the gimmick of Gab, the Divine Soldier. When a monster is in face down, Gab has a continuous effect where they are changed into attack position, and then their flip effects are not activated, and the Enneapolis is going to be able to like bounce back the Astapixia, or whatever, literally any of them, and then I'm just gonna keep repeating this bullshit over and over, so I can keep giving more counters to my two scales, and then yeah, just summon infinite monsters, and then use the final effect of the field spell. This is not an infinite loop, by the way. You can only do this twice, but that's all you need, because you're burning your opponent for a lot, because you're basically getting 2 counters every single time you're doing this, since you have 2 scales, and when you're summoning 2 monsters, you're basically burning your opponent for 36. That's a lot of damage. So yeah, we're going to be doing it one final time, and there you go, Merry Christmas. Now we got 5 counters on each card, and that is 9,000, and your opponent is dead. I don't even know why he had a draw face, but yeah, that is cheating. Well, not really, because, you know, this is a simulation on Eater Pro. But whatever, you get the point. You can kill your opponent with a very skillful 5-card combo. It's very easy to do. All you have to do is draw good, which is easy to do when your deck is super consistent. And your deck is super consistent because Enneacraft best deck, even though, I don't know if a lot of people will agree with that. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let me know how you feel about this deck in the comment section below. I'll see you guys very soon. Peace.